What's up, guys? How you guys doing? So I made this post yesterday that I was going to be going with my Ruby Amethyst deck to a local tournament, and I wanted to kind of do like a catch up of that event. So I ended up playing in three different matches, and all of them were mirror. And my deck, this deck right here, Control to Victory, as I've titled it, uh, came in first place. I was undefeated. So that now, with this version of the deck, when I made the video, actually right after I made the video before, whatever, I had updated the deck prior to making this video, not this one, the other one that you see on the screen, uh, and then had defeated two mirror matches. Now I've defeated five. So it like in-person events, So I've won two in-person events undefeated with this exact deck. Um, I will say that so last night, for example, my group that shop usually is 8 to 10. Last night there was not very many of us. There was a bunch of people. There's a lot of other events going on right now, and a couple people were sick, and just there was other reasons why some people didn't show up. So there's only the four of us. So we just did a round robin thing, but all of us were running Ruby Amethyst. I've been running it for this whole set for the majority of like this entire set. Um, Two of them have kind of switched to it, and the other person hasn't played in a while, so he had an older version. So basically, what ended up happening, you had my version of Ruby Amethyst. That link will be in the description for you to go and check this deck out. Um, One person was running an extremely heavy evasive version that also had Lumiere, which was a interesting touch because I was used to seeing, the Peter Pan, which would then also have like Half Shark and Iago, but there was no Moanas that I saw, the evasive one. So I'm assuming what happened was he may have just taken out the Moanas, put in the Lumieres. That makes it so that you can't brawl Peter Pan or Genie, right? It makes it that much more difficult to deal with those. Um, the second person that I played against had it was a homebrew that was mixed with like extremely heavy card draw or things that would just happen, like, obviously ran Diablos, Cuscos, Chernobygs, and like brooms, but then also still had Rabbit, had Genie, had Dolores. What else was there? I know the last week he had the Maleficent from set one, where you play her and you immediately draw a card. So he has a lot of stuff to draw cards. A lot, like often I was under the number of cards that he had. Um, then the third matchup was against the person who had an older deck, like a set old. He hadn't actually bought anything from set seven until last night. So his deck was still running like um, Flynn. He had Flynn Rider and some other stuff like that. So he had it's still an effective deck, right? I mean, like in mine right here, there is nothing from set seven. Everything is set six and below. So it's not like you have to include anything new for it to be able to really work and be fire. So that is and all five that I have gone against, and I guess you can include my own, all six of the Ruby Amethysts that are like in my local community right now, for the two shops that I've been going to, all are distinctly different versions. Yes, it's Ruby Amethyst, so it's still trying to, do early card draw in the beginning. Have most of them still had the bounce mechanics. Most of them, if not all, still had some locations mixed in, and obviously B prep and other removal cards. So we all kind of have the same idea, but it's how we're trying to get to the end of the game is different. So, sometimes in previous seasons where like you're running into mirror matches and you guys are like almost identical decks. Right now, it has not been that way. So when you're sitting down from your opponent, you don't really know, okay, does he have 4B preps? Is he running Medusa or only Tremaine? Is he running Dragonfire or Half Shark or Peter Pan or extra castles? Like in my case, Teeth and Ambitions. I don't think anybody else locally yet that I've seen is running that. So we all kind of have our own flair to it. How many crabs are you running? How many foxes? How many Mauis? This all changes how, like, if I'm sitting down from you and we're doing a mirror match and I know you only have two Mauis and I've got three, but I know you have locations and I see you ink a Maui, I'm going to feel a whole lot safer and starting to play my locations, because now you don't really have as easy of a time to answer back to me. If I know you don't have any Sisus, well, then I don't feel as nervous of playing maybe a couple of little characters that I'm trying to go wide with, right? When, in my case, I do have one. I do have a big Sisu. So each version is different, duh, but each plays a little bit very similar, but still in their own way. I will predict, and it's already a trend if you look at any of the like meta reports, Ruby Amethyst is going to probably be everywhere during set champs. It's probably going to be extremely prevalent. So I think that if you are looking at taking Ruby Amethyst, whether you're taking my deck or somebody else's or your own homebrew, practice against Mirror, because those games, I wasn't super thrilled sitting down last night and seeing that everyone was running Ruby Amethyst. And I won't lie, there was a tug in my head of like, should I pull out Steel Song just to be different? Because is each game going to be just an absolute just slog? And it wasn't. I actually felt much better last night. Funny enough, I felt way better last night than I did the previous week when I went to a different shop to play, and I ended up with those other two mirror matches. The ones last night, two of the matchups, I went 2-0. Another one, I went 2-1. That's fine, right? I didn't feel my concern. I'll be honest. My concern with running into mirror, especially with Ruby Amethyst, is that the games will take so long that we'll be trading back and forth for such an extreme amount of time that if I were to have to sit down and play 5 mirror matchups just to make top cut at some store championship, will I have the mental endurance to get to the end of the day trying to, you make top cut, maybe if it's top 8, now you have to do 2 more matchups. And if another one of those is mirror or something like that's just going to be kind of brutal. And it could be very taxing mentally by the time you get to the end of the day. And there's no way to really circumvent that. Yeah, you could take a different deck. And I still anticipate that some of these people who are playing right now locally will switch to other things. Some of them don't want to be playing what is going to be their championship deck. They don't want anybody to see it, or they're just alluding to, I don't know, I might do something different. Yeah, they're probably going to do something different, which is totally cool. But this is what I'm planning to do. This is I'm trying not to make any more changes. I think this is a very strong, firm list. I think it performs very well. And now that I have defeated 5 matchups locally, I feel much better about going into set champs here very soon. And I'm looking forward to hopefully having good news to report after that. So I guess I've been thinking about what to do next with these videos. One, I'm still trying to get more exposure and more reach for these videos for people to watch and then start to provide their own feedback or their own input or their own whatever. And so right now I know that the metrics and stuff are not super favorable. So is anybody that's watching, is there a particular thing that you would like to see? Would you like to see, because I could do some games like on Ink Table, or I could do some matchups that are like mirror matches, or maybe even like, okay, do a match against Steel Song, do a match against Emerald Steel, do a match against, I don't know, pick the deck. And just do some games through Ink Table, try to see where things are going. Ink Table isn't necessarily the best test because if you don't know, Ink Table is effectively an AI that you're playing against, an artificial player, but it doesn't always make the best decisions. I've lost to it in times because it isn't stupid, but sometimes it'll do things where you're like, that's extremely questionable. I don't know if I would have done that. But I also don't see their hand until the game is over. So, but let me know if you would like to, maybe if you have other questions about like why certain cards over others. I did a little bit of the opening hand in the previous video, but you could do those with like actual physical cards. I'm pointing over here, you can't see. That's where I have my setup for doing like Pixelborn or other pack openings and stuff, or I don't know, just other types of questions. I want to try to help some other Ruby Amethyst players, especially those that maybe aren't as experienced, to have a better shot going into this championship season. And I'd like to see this deck be, whether it's mine or just in general, I'd like to see Ruby Amethyst back at the top. For a while, I was totally cool with whatever, but now that we had Ruby Sapphire and Sapphire Steel pre-ban, dominating so many things, and then kind of seeing like Emerald Steel on the horizon trying to come back and other stuff, and Emerald Amethyst discard and all these other things. I'd like to see a strong contender brought back that Ruby Amethyst really should be a top tier deck 100%. And I think that so many people are playing it because it still is so strong. So thank you guys for watching. Please let me know in the comments what you'd like to see. I'd like to make some other videos, but I wanted to make this one to kind of update how things are progressing as we're moving closer to, store champs. I know that I could win 100 straight games. I could win 100 matchups, 20 tournaments, right? I could just dominate. And then you go to a store champ and you just brick. Your hands are just terrible and you just lose because your deck was like, it's not your day, son. And that's just it, right? So there is an element of that, but there's also, if you keep practicing, you can see paths forward. And after the event was over, I asked one of my opponents if he wanted to play again, but I was like, look, I've got another deck. I had Steel Song with me that I built that I could also do videos on because my version's a little bit different than what you're seeing out there. And he ended up playing his Ruby Amethyst again because he's kind of him and hawing if he's going to end up taking that to the store champs. And so we only did one game, and he ended up being able to beat the Steel Song because, and I know as a Ruby Amethyst player or as a Steel Song player as well, if the game goes long, Ruby Amethyst has such a better chance of winning. If you can't, as Steel Song, you can't close that gap and win super early or be in a really, really good place early, it's going to be rough. And that's what happened. I put out, I kind of saw a path forward, but I knew that it was going to take time, and he had enough brawls to slow me down, and it just worked for him. It would have been interesting to see if we went the full 3, but so I can make other types of videos for other decks. I can do some more deep diving into this. Let me know what you want to see, and then we'll go from there. All right, thank you guys. Talk to you later.